Good. Can't complain too much.
Yeah. So how's the scenario there?
In Germany,
Yeah.
we can go to the street. It's not strictly lockdown as long as we're going alone or in the groups that live in the same place. So you can go with family as long as you're living together and stuff. Restaurants are still closed. Big surface. I think next week is starting to soft a little bit. So I would say it's not as bad as other countries. I hear that in India, everything
Yeah,
is
in
pretty
India it's
lockdown, right?
strictly lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Till May 3, it's strictly lockdown, and after May 3, what happens? Government will announce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see.
So
I think in our
yeah.
field it's not so bad because we can do these remote things, right? But yeah.
Okay. So hi everyone. Hope you are all doing well in this lockdown. And as always, I would say stay home, stay safe. And today we have with us Enrique Lopez Mañas. Probably all here have heard of him or know about him. He's author. He's a community person. He runs Kotlin Weekly, which is the famous digest for all Kotlin lovers like me. We all subscribe there, and I hope everyone here already subscribed to Kotlin Weekly. And his famous book, Living by the Code, is really great. I really suggest you read that. And yeah, over to you, Enrique.
Great. Thank you very much, Ribo. Can people see me or can people see my screen now?
Not your screen yet. Let me check.
Is my screen now live? I think so, right?
Yeah, your screen is live now.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a short presentation about ktor and how it works, and later on I'll be doing a demo in 20 minutes. So the idea is to prove that we can have a running backend with ktor in 20 minutes or less. Very shortly about me, I'm an Android Kotlin UD. I work as a freelance engineer, and as Ribu mentioned, I'm the author of Android High Performance, and I'm among other things, I have 12 years of Android experience, and also some G2E Kotlin on the backend, and of course on Android, TensorFlow, and Ruby on Rails. As a freelance engineer, you end up taking on many different things. And now back to or farther with the topic of ktor. What is ktor? Ktor is defined as an easy to use, fun, and asynchronous backend library, and allows us to create DSL web services using Kotlin. It works like this. We essentially work with an application, a ktor application, which is the center of the of our backend, and this will be taken on several engines. It can be Yeti, it can be any of the other ones that ktor has support for. And we will be integrating different features that give us functionality to our application. Really easy to plug them in and really out of the box. So those features could be things such as authentication, cookies, headers, DSLs to create HTML or CSS, etc. And yeah, that very shortly. Now let me go back into the coding part. Okay, so if I'm gonna create a ktor project using IntelliJ. Okay, so if you have IntelliJ, you would like to go to somewhere like File, New Project. Oh, wait, not Refactor, File. And they have two screens and it's not always so easy to select. Okay, Project. And from here, if I can, we have several options to create our project. So if we want to start with ktor, we have a few options that we can mark by default. This will be adding some initial of those features that we've been speaking about that will be can be used on our applications. And between them are things such as DSLs to use HTML code, free markers that we will see later what that is about. We can use basic authentication also out of the box, or include a JSON for content negotiation if we want to send the data in JSON or whatever. And so it's very out of the box, and we can select here which sort of client we want, if we have Yeti or if we want Apache or whatever is supported by ktor. So if we go to next and Then we just need to specify our group ID, come the meetup example, whatever we want to write here, and meetup ktor backend. And this will start creating our project. Oh, wait, I got on the other screen now. If I want to, okay, it's creating on the other screen. Wait, I'll move it here. Great. So, yeah, we just create this here. Now we see what these have created by default. So we see if we came here to the src file, we have already a bunch of codes that has been created. I'm gonna remove it just to do it by ourselves and see that we can easily do this. And yeah, we have as well like the standard test that gets created with all the ktor, the JetBrain, the IntelliJ projects. We have some resources that we will be using later. For instance, this template will be, okay, I think it's still synchronizing and doing a couple of weird things. So yeah, on templates, we have this FTL file that will be used later in order to draw content, etc. So let's come first to this application model that gets created when we start. So if we add a setup here, so, or wait, we can actually, yeah, if we click here on Run Application KT, this will automatically start our ktor application. So I have a, oh wait, I need to, it's not going to work. And the reason for that is that I need to, okay, let's see if my computer reacts now. Yeah, I need to start my MAMP. So I provide SQL Server that will be used later. Yeah, good. Okay, this first time is probably going to take a little bit longer. And when that's finished, we'll see that, okay, this has started and is now speaking, talking with this address on our local machine. I think I have Postman open, okay, so I'll be checking later if things work. And the first one we were talking is that we can do is the routing, right? So we can specify endpoints using this routing feature. And it's as easy as this is. Let's gonna create first some sort of hello wall for our app where we will just, well, call the some endpoint. We're going to call it, for instance, hello, and this will be painting something on the screen. So we could start with, well, we have this call object. I'll go a little bit more into that later. And essentially, this call object, well, allows us to respond text, to handle all of the requests that are coming, etc. So this default response would be like, we can just paint something like hello, content type. Here we need to specify the content type that we want. Sorry. So that would be something like content type and plain. So when we call this endpoint, we will be just painting this on the screen. Let's gonna recompile and make a short test on our Postman and see if that's actually happening. Okay, now it's faster. The first time takes a little bit longer, but then afterwards should be better. So now if we call this, yeah, we see that we're painting this and the result is being delivered as a text plain. This is very interesting because we can also have something like if we want to send like content types in, like instead of text plain, we can specify that we want JSON or that we want anything else. So from there is much very flexible. So we could specify that we're sending CSS or HTML or whatever we want. I'm just going to leave it right now on the plane. We can do more things. We can actually use, we've mentioned that we can be sending things such as DSLs, for example. So let's gonna send now another DSL. So we will have this DSL object that, or this DSL endpoint. Yeah, and using the same call object, now we're going to be responding an HTML. This is really nice because we can specify on a DSL way that we want to send an HTML back to the user. So here we can use directly those tags such as h1 or body or whatever we would like to be sending. I'm not really an HTML guy, but I think this is how you do a list nowadays. We could be painting something like from 1 to 10, for instance. Let's gonna paint items on a list. I think I'm doing it right. I never do the template right the first time. Yeah, I think that should be it. See that this is super comfortable. Normally you would be using like an external library or anything. Here you just kind of specify everything to a DSL. So it's very easy to actually work with this. So if we actually recompile and came back to Postman, Rebook, you can see the screen, right? I'm not assuming that everybody can see it and then it's not very visible. Is that okay? Okay, I assume it will be. So now if we came to Postman and we call the DSL, we'll see that we are painting a very nice list from 1 to 10, which are the elements that we have specified before that will be painted. We can use those free markers that I've mentioned before. The free markers well, essentially it will use a template that I have specified here. And in order to do that, we would need to do something like the following. That's very nice because we don't need, you can do things programmatically, but you can also create those templates and pass them data later. So it results very nice if you're working in an organization or you want to reuse them or store them in a Git repository where everybody has access, etc. So in order to do that, we would need to respond free marker content. That's an object that comes directly with ktor when we have specified, of course, this feature. We would need to pass here as an argument the template that we're going to be using. So is this index.ftl. And let's gonna create now, this is just to support the data that we pass. So if we came here to the index.ftl, we see that we need to pass data that has items essentially. So that's very simple. Let's create a data class here called index data that is very simple, contains a list of ints. So that's it. Nothing very fancy. It's just something that we're going to be using to map it into our template. So the second argument that we need to pass here is actually the data. So let's going to pass, for example, a map of this index data that we have just created. We can create like a list of with a list of constructor of, for instance, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, right. And I think I still need one. I think and right. Yeah. Well, what you need? I'm not really sure if this parameter is compulsory to specify the tag, but by specifying this, essentially we create this free marker content using a template, passing some data that we're defining here, and this should paint as in similar to the case with the DSL some DSL content. So okay, let's came now back to how did we say we call this free marker? Oh, something I made an error here by Wait, in HTML minus free marker. Okay. Okay, let me write it just free marker, and this will work out. Yeah, no, I think it's not going to work. Yeah, that was my mistake. We need to install this feature before. So yeah, so every feature needs to be installed. Here we need to specify free marker, specify the template loader, and this will be class template loader where we need to pass. Well, this actually, I'm writing this, but when you install this feature from the beginning, it should be automatically there. So you don't need to like do this by yourself. All the features are automatically installed. There's generally also like just one line, and then you have them available. Okay, so now if I call free marker, I think it was, yeah, you see that we're painting 1, 2, 3, as we have here on the marker, just with the data that we pass. There is a very nice feature that I think it's so good to have it fast, and it's authentication. Normally, when we have any backend, we might need to authenticate the user. Basic auth is one of the things that we might, for example, want to use to control access of users. And here it really came out of the box. So here we can specify that we're going to use install the authentication, basic authentication. On the realm, we just specify the real that we're going to be using. And when it comes to validate, we will need to use this ID object, and then specifying if the name, that's going to be obviously the name for the basic authentication. For example, it can be user, and the password could be password. So if this is the key, that we can do user ID principal will be user, and otherwise it would be, sorry, I was working before in Swift, so it's been a bit hard not to switch. Great. So yeah, I think this works out. We could, for example, now have an endpoint that is authentication. So instead of this, I'm just going to copy and have something very similar to this hello world. And instead of that, we'll have an endpoint that is authenticated. How? Okay, wait. Now my Jet IntelliJ is freezing. Great. So we will need to include everything within this authenticate log, and this specifies that we need to use the previously defined authentication. So if we create an endpoint called hello auth, it's going to be doing the same, but hello world auth, just authenticated. So if we recompile again, we should, let's gonna try first the hello auth without any authentication. This should return us 40x, 401 unauthorized, because we haven't included any authentication. But if we include now the basic auth with, I think it was user and password, this should also let us work exactly 200 and hello world auth. So see that it's really nice that it's handling also like all the code responses. We don't need to make anything, like if there is this problem, send 401. So it makes everything super comfortable. Now, let's gonna see how, of course, we can access to a DB. I don't know if I'm yet over 20 minutes, but I think it's gonna be there. So I'm gonna take this. I copied it on my notepad, so I don't need to do this at once, because if not, I will make a mistake. So I have this function to initialize the database. I think I also need to import the database object. Let me wait here and copy all the data DB stuff and came back to Gradle. What we're going to do now is accessing just okay, let's see if now this wants to synchronize. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm gonna need to synchronize the file. So wait 1 second. Okay. Let's see now. I don't want to do an invalidate cassettes and restart because that's gonna take longer. But okay, so now database is not imported. Let me see, how can I see from here? If I can easily synchronize this with my Gradle files. Okay, I cannot seem to find it, but that means I'm gonna come in my backup project. Okay, so if I can't synchronize this in a sec, I'll just open the backup project that I have. Yeah, okay. Then I'm gonna come to my backup project here. And so how it works. So I generally have always a backup project in case there is any problem like today. Anyway, so well, this is essentially the same project I was practicing before, and what we have specified here is a function giniDB. This function specifies the URL of my. Let me actually stop this one, and I'll start this one. So this connects to my local database, specifying the user, password, and the URL. And what I have defined in this database, it's if I'm able to open it, is just a very simple database that contains a user. A user is composed of an ID, name, and email. So if I connect and I came here to meetup participants, or sorry, my testDB user, let's see that I have like these two users composed by ID, name, and email. So what I have created here would be an endpoint, this one from here called user, that takes all the users and display them by essentially calling to this get top user data function. This function, what it does, it creates a JSON. Then later, using a transaction object, access to all the users by creating this using the expose SQL, access into this query. I like it a lot because you can just define them here programmatically, and you don't need to take care of checking whether your SQL string is compliant or not. Here is very simple. So user, selector, order by, and limit. And then it stores them in an array, and this array is the one that gets added in a JSON response. So it's really simple and very easy to use. Here we create a table specifying those parameters, and we just call them through the endpoint. So if I start this application here, this will be starting as well on 880. And what if I'm calling this function called, how was that, get users, or get users? I don't think I need any authentication here. This could be painting the users that I have specified. See also that something interesting is that if I think if I specify here as a header that content type as JSON, I think I might be able to render it directly as a JSON file. No, okay, I think I need to specify this application as, let's see if I specify it from here directly, then I can communicate between client and server using the JSON format. Right, so now it's connected. What if I do this now? Great, see that this is formatting now that as JSON, so it's super convenient. And in fact, if I add another user here, so user 3, name, we can actually call him null, and email at email.gmail.com, for instance. And then I call against the endpoint. I see that I guess the other user deliver. So, well, that's it. I think it might have taken slightly more than 20 minutes, but that's essentially what I wanted to show with ktor. I really like it a lot. I think it's oh, I got this. I read now all those messages that you could not see the properly. I don't know what you actually saw during the entire presentation. Atri or Giru, are you there? Ribu?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Hi. That's funny. I didn't see any message just now when I came here.
Yeah, they are saying that the screen you are just sharing, it was not the active ID. I think they have issue with
Oh,
the ID.
okay. Well, so what did you see last? Like just the empty screen on the last part?
Uh, I think they have commented in the.
Okay. Yeah, that's a bit inconvenient. I just realized that now. So, well, I don't know if you saw everything. I can, which, Atri? Still not. Atri, are you there?
Yeah.
Just so I just checking all the. Yeah, so it seems that the screen was grown, but I just got the message. So.
Yes. Can you once show the coding screen once, please?
Yeah, that's well, was a bit inconvenient. So I think I have missed the entire presentation. Which screen do you see now?
Mainly the coding screen. People are asking.
Do you see my environment now?
I think yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is visible now.
Okay, then well, yeah. I guess I can show it now again, but just not well, not really convenient. Anyway, I'll just show you slightly how how this is created. Yeah, so we have this when we're using ktor. This would be the entry point to our application. This is the main function, and here we need to specify the engine that we're going to use, is Neti or Apaso or whatever. And how we actually create let me see. If we actually create new functions or new entry points, they should be used as follows. We will have our routing function or our routing block, and inside we specify all the endpoints that we want to use. For example, we have this one for hello. We have this call object. Call object is the object that handles all the web calls and is able to respond. And so if we click here on point, we should be able to see all these functions like respond text or respond HTML, etc. And actually, this is running, so I think I'll show some examples here. This is Postman, so if we call to hello with a get, let's see what we see. We see this hello world as text. This is what would be coming from here. We specify the text and the content type. We can also use DSLs. This is an example of an HTML DSL where through the object call and the block respond HTML, we can specify very nice on a HTML DSL what we want to show. So this would be like something like body, H1, UL, and then a list from 1 to 10. So if we call from, for example, this HTML DSL, that's what we would be getting. Some other things that we can do is use templates, such as this free marker from here. This essentially, if we have installed the feature previously, as we do in this part from here, we will have the template. We will need to specify the template here, this index.ftl file, which essentially is an HTML file that can be reused and get the data from the items and then displays them. And we would need to fill with some data that we're providing. With this basic sample, we just create a list from 1, 2, 3, maps them into the template, and then they just get displayed. So for instance, if we came now to Postman and try to access this, we'll see that it's the list from 1, 2, 3 that we have created before. Other things that we can do with Postman, with ktor, is also using authentication. This would be the use case where we install our authentication, specify a user and a password, and then we will be able to access it. If we have here this hello at function, for example, see that this is within an authenticate block. We need to specify also the text that we are going to respond, etc. And we call it now. See that we are getting a 401 unauthorized, and that's because we haven't specified the authorization we want. So if we came now to basic auth, specify user and password, and send it, in this case it's working, 200 auth hello. And this is very nice because we don't need to take care of anything. So they see that in one language, just specifying that this is authenticated or not, and otherwise we just don't let the user to access this. The last example I display is how to insert things on a database. So we would have this database here that we create, the database user, that essentially is one single table that contains users. Users have ID, name, and email. And we would have the endpoint users that when it gets called, just calls the function get top user data here. And this function is very simple. It just uses a transaction. The transactions are essentially part of the SQL Expose library from JetBrains. And I think it's very nice to use because you don't need to worry about, well, writing all those queries, prove that they are formally functional. You just call this through this mechanism, the table, select all, order by, limit, whatever you want to add to the query. Then this gets automatically added to users, and we just can add them to the response and automatically parse it as JSON. So if we call the endpoint users here and send it, see that it's painting this. This is the 3 emails that I have on my database. And if I actually remove one of them, this gets also updated. So I'll be sending them here. Something that I did is here on this endpoint was accessing the, here on users, I was specifying that the content type would be JSON. That's very nice as well, because we can specify we're sending like any JSON, text, HTML, or whatever we want to send. So that's why we can present it very nicely here as a JSON. Always as soon as we're sending the content type application JSON. Otherwise, it would look like this. Well, that was it. Sorry that didn't work out quite well. So the idea was to live code this and to prove that it's possible to do it in 20 minutes. Actually, to end up with something as simple as this is very possible. I guess you didn't see at the beginning when I was creating the project. But in order to create a ktor project, you can do something like create new project here. And on IntelliJ, and you can see on the left side that you can use ktor, and you can specify all those sort of templates. We've been using an HTML template. You could decide to use also a CSS. You can use these free markers. You have a few other templates. Some features such as handling sessions, handling the routine that we're already doing, authentication, different sorts of authentication that we can handle. We can be using JSON, Jackson, and other mechanism for content negotiation, etc. And I think all these features that are provided by ktor are really well done. So really, they take a lot of work outside from you. You can also specify the engine that you want to be using. As I think of ktor is a very minimalistic backend engine that allows you to have an engine, a backend running in a few minutes. And it's very easy to extend and customize. You can deploy it to Heroku, to Amazon. You have a few places where it can be deployed. And yeah, I think if you compare this with other solutions such as G2EE or the entire corporate Java stack, where having anything set up can easily take like up to 1 day, and you have to fight with a lot of dependencies, here it can be done very nicely and without many problems. So yeah, I guess that's everything. If you folks have any question, I would love to take a look on that. Are you there, Atri? Or Ribu? Then is sorry for the technical problems at the beginning. I wish I could have realized that if you learned something new today, that's already very good. Do you folks have any other question or something you would like to learn about ktor? Well, if there are no more questions, I hope you learned something new today. That would be already very nice. You could talk a little bit about sessions. Well, I haven't used sessions that much. I actually used it on a sample project. Let me see if we can see the documentation. How was that? Yeah, if I'm right, exactly. So you would be using this mice or this call.session subject that essentially allows you to retrieve any session that has been created. And I think it has also operations to invalidate them and to retrieve them through cookie. So, well, potentially you could like just get them through cookie header, etc. and stuff. So I don't have that super deep experience with them. I actually did it in a sample project that I have for an API that needs to provide a session before. And I remember it was something also like one line. So if the session has been already created and is stored on the database, then just take it and keep sending it in, and that would serve to authenticate the endpoints. If you want further information about that, you just can, if you Google something like a ktor sessions feature, you have like, I think there is not a lot too much about it, but you have a page where you can essentially see how they work and how you can, if you need to storage them, and some tips to save them on the database, etc. You have any question, folks? Atri, do you see any question on the meetup page?
Yeah, sure. I will forward you.
Okay, so should we call it a session? If anybody wants to ask anything, you can always contact me on Twitter. Super happy to provide you with an answer, if I know the answer, that is.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, and cheers to India, and have a nice day.
Yeah, same to you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.